Good day, everyone. We are the group from Bachelor of Science in Nursing Block NA, presenting to you nursing theory from theorist Nola Pender, as well as conceptual models from Roy, Levine, and Hall. We have a lot in stock for this session, so I hope you all buckle up and try to keep up with Lady, Princess, Gian, and yours truly, Kirsten, as we discuss the history and bibliography of nursing theorist Nola Pender, describe the health promotion model theory, determine and discuss the different assumptions made by Nola Pender that relates to the nursing meta-paradigm concepts, discuss the conceptual models of Leroy, Levine, and Hall, and finally, the summary and conclusion of the entire presentation.
Now let's talk about Nola Pender. Here is her history and biography. Early life of Nola J. Pender. She was born on August 16, 1941 in Lansing, Michigan. She was inspired to pursue nursing from observing nurses' care for her aunt, which instilled a belief in her that the goal of nursing was to help people care for themselves. She finished her schooling in 1964 and earned her bachelor's degree at Michigan State University and earned her master's degree the following year. She also earned her PhD from Northwestern University in 1969. Pender received numerous awards in her lifetime. She was given a Distinguished Alumni Award from the Michigan State University School of Nursing in 1972, followed by an honorary doctorate of science degree in 1992, bestowed upon her by the Widener University. She also received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Michigan Nursing Research Society in 2005 and became a living legend of the American Academy of Nursing by the year 2012. This award was only given to a few dozen nurses who have made exceptional contribution to the profession. Pender has served as a member of a number of organizations. She is also a co-founder of the Midwest Nursing Research Society and currently serves as a trustee. She is currently a professor emerita in the Division of Health Promotion and Risk Reduction at the University of Michigan School of Nursing and serves as a distinguished professor at Loyola University Chicago School of Nursing. She is currently retired and spends her time consulting on health promotion research nationally and internationally.
The health promotion model is ultimately a model that takes the client's well-being as a priority for an improved health promoting outcome. This is generally an approach to wellness that is directed towards achieving positive health outcomes such as optimal well-being, personal fulfillment, and productive living. Pender originally published this theory back in 1982 and was then revised in 1996 and 2002. With that, we will now discuss the concepts and definitions that make up the health promotion model. Please bear with me as we discuss these concepts one by one. The models shown on the screen belong to the Health Promotion in Nursing Practice, specifically the fourth edition that was made in 2002. So, in the model, it is divided into three divisions, namely the individual characteristics and experiences, the behavior-specific cognitions and effect, and the behavioral outcome. And we also have sections under these individual divisions. Now let us start with the first division, which is the individual characteristics and experiences. Under this division, we have the prior related behavior, which refers to the frequency of the same or similar behavior in the past. This has direct and indirect effects on the likelihood of engaging in health-promoting behaviors. Following that, we also have the personal factors, which is made up of three subcomponents. The first one being the biological factors, which account for the age, gender, body mass index, pubertal status, menopausal status, aerobic capacity, strength, agility, and balance. Next to that is the psychological factors, which are the self-esteem, self-motivation, personal competence, perceived health status, and definition of health. And lastly, the social cultural factors, which include the race, ethnicity, acculturation, education, and socioeconomic status. Now that the first division is covered, let us now proceed to the next one. The behavior-specific cognitions and affect make up for specifically 6 sections. The first 4 sections, seen on top of the model, belong to the prior related behavior, while the last 2 sections belong to the personal factors. We have to understand that this model is tightly interrelated with one another, so we may see various concepts related to other concepts. First component under the behavior-specific cognitions and affect is the perceived benefits of action. This is the anticipated positive outcomes that will result from health behavior, whereas the perceived barriers to action is the anticipated, imagined, or real blocks and personal costs of undertaking a given behavior. Following that, we also have the perceived self-efficacy, which is the judgment of personal capability to organize and execute a health-promoting behavior. This influences perceived barriers to action. So, higher efficacy results in lowered perceptions of barriers to the performance of the behavior. Lastly, activity-related affect describes the subjective positive or negative feelings that occur before, during, and after behavior based on the stimulus properties. This effect influences the perceived self-efficacy, which means that the more positive the subjective feeling, the greater is the feeling of efficacy. In turn, increased feelings of efficacy can generate further positive effects. As I have said before, these concepts are interrelated with one another. Activity-related affect directly affects personal self-efficacy, while personal self-efficacy consequently directly affects perceived barriers to action. So all of these are interrelated with one another, which explains the arrows. Next on the behavior-specific cognitions and affect are the personal factors, which are the 2 sections below the model here. So under this section, we have the interpersonal influences, which are the cognitions concerning behaviors, beliefs, or attitudes of others. These may include norms, social support, and modeling. The cardinal sources of interpersonal influences are the families, peers, and providers. Lastly, the situational influences are the personal perceptions and cognitions of any given situation or context that can facilitate or impede behavior. These influences can have direct or indirect influences on health behavior. Now that we have finished discussing the first 2 divisions, it is now time to discuss the last division, behavioral outcome. The behavioral outcome or event is initiated by a commitment to action unless there is a competing demand that cannot be avoided or a competing preference that cannot be resisted. Under this division, we have the first 3 components. First is the commitment to a plan of action, which describes the concept of intention and identification of a planned strategy that leads to implementation of a health behavior. Afterwards, we have the competing demands, which are the alternative behaviors over which individuals have low control, such as work or family care responsibilities. Next is the competing preferences, which are the alternative behaviors over which individuals exert relatively high control, such as the choice of ice cream or an apple for a snack. Lastly, the health-promoting behavior, which is ultimately the outcome or endpoint towards attaining positive health outcomes. When one accomplishes this, one must have optimal well-being, personal fulfillment, and productive living. This theory helps nurses comprehend the key factors influencing health behaviors as a foundation for behavioral counseling to encourage healthy lifestyles. This theory, which is a model of health behavior, is developed using studies from the fields of nursing, psychology, and public health. In addition to this, nursing procedures and interventions can be organized using the model as a guide. In clinical settings, nurses should concentrate on comprehending and addressing the factors that are most indicative of specific health behaviors.
The health promotion model of Nola Pender shows an interrelationship between the nursing meta paradigm, namely the person, the environment, the health, and nursing. These assumptions have led her to create this model that promotes a healthy lifestyle in all aspects of the person and in nursing as well. It is shown in most of Nolo Penner's assumptions that there is a relationship between the person and the environment, since according to Pender, the person is a biophysical organism shaped by the environment but also seeks to create an environment in which human potential can be fully expressed. In other words, behaviors are shaped by personal traits and life events. The assumptions that show an interrelationship between person and environment are the following. First, people try to create conditions of living through which they can express their unique human potential. Second, people interact with their environment, transforming it and themselves over time. And finally, self-initiated reconfiguration of the interactive patterns between people and their environment is necessary for change in behavior.
Nolan Pender emphasizes that realizing one's potential through goal-directed behavior, self-care, and interpersonal interactions while making the required modifications to preserve context-relevant settings is what is meant by being in good health, which explains why, when the person is in a good state, meaning being in a state of good health, then the goal of care and promotion of healthy lifestyle is achieved. These are the assumptions that show an interrelationship between person and health. People have the capacity for reflective self-awareness, including assessment of their own competencies. Second, people value positive growth and strive to find a balance between stability and change. And last but not the least, people seek to actively regulate their own behavior. Next, we have the nursing environment interconnection. Nola Pender believes that in order to provide the ideal conditions for the expression of optimal health and high levels of well-being, nursing involves collaboration with patients, families, and communities. The assumption that show an interrelationship between nursing and environment is nurses and other health professionals make up a part of the interpersonal environment which exert influence on people throughout their lifespan. Now let's talk about Lydia Eloise Hall's theory, the 3 C's of Lydia, or the care, cure, core model of nursing. Theory defined nursing as a participation in care, core, and cure aspects of patients' care, where care is the sole function of nurses, whereas the core and cure are shared with other members of the health team. Hall's theory relies on the coordination of all 3 aspects and focuses on the patient as a whole, rather than focusing on just one aspect. The 3 aspects, which are the care, cure, core, are aspects that work with one another. These circles constantly change according to the state of the patient. Now let's start with the 3 aspects of the Hall's theory. First is care. This circle is dedicated to completing the duty of caring for patients and symbolizes the responsibility of nurses. It is similar to the concept of mothering, care and comfort of the person. and providing for teaching learning activities are both aspects of nurturing. The care circle that is in line with the cure circle is focused on the providings of the nurses to their patients, which may include providing comfort measures, educating patients, and assisting the patient in fulfilling their needs or whenever assistance is required. Next is the cure. The cure is nursing, which is the interventions and actions in which they come up slowly to be able to treat the patient and future patients. She explained that the nurses work in the cure circle along with all the other medical experts and professionals to be able to make interventions and actions in which they come up are solely to be able to treat the patients. Last but not the least is the core. The patient receiving nursing care is the focal point of the core aspect. This aspect acts in accordance with their feelings and values and sets their own goals, not those of anyone else. Here are some additional information of Hall's Care Cure Core Theory. First, the motivation and energy necessary for healing exists within the patient rather than in the healthcare team. Second, the three aspects of nursing should not be viewed as functioning independently but as interrelated. Third, the three aspects interact and the circles representing them change the size depending on the patient's total course of progress. In conclusion of Hall's conceptual theory, the patient is the core. The cure refers to the medical and nursing interventions, and the care is a nurturing provided by the nurses. Nursing functions in all three of the circles, but shares them to different degrees with other disciplines. Instead of focusing on just one component or element, this theory highlights the significance of the patient as a whole.
Now we proceed to Myra Estrin Levine's contribution to the theory of nursing, her very own conservation model. The picture here shows the entirety of Levine's conservation model. When an individual is in a phase of conservation, it means that the person can adapt to the health challenges with the slightest amount of effort. And thus, the core of Levine's conservation model is to improve a person's physical and emotional well-being by considering the four domains of conservation she set out. These four domains of conservation, or the four conservation principles, explain the goal of nursing as a way to improve a person's physical and emotional well-being. These are the following. First is a conservation of energy. It refers to balancing energy, input and output to avoid excessive fatigue. Next is a conservation of structural integrity. The human body has physical boundaries must be maintained to facilitate health and prevent harmful agents from entering the body. Next is a conservation of personal integrity. The nursing interventions are based on the conservation of individual clients' personality and identity. Every individual has a sense of identity, self-worth, and self-esteem which must be preserved and enhanced by nurses. Next is the conservation of social integrity. The social integrity of the clients reflects the family and the community in which the client functions. Healthcare institutions may separate individuals from their family. It is important for the nurses to consider the individual in the context of the family. By proposing to address the conservation of energy, structure, and personal and social integrity, this nursing theory helps guide nurses in providing care that will help maintain and promote the health of the patient. These four conservation principles should all be integrated when taking care of a patient, and not one should be singled out entirely, or as Levine states, the conservation principles do not, of course, operate singly and in isolation from each other. They are joined with the individual as a cascade of life events churning and changing as the environmental challenge is confronted and resolve in each individual's unique way. Finally, just like the theories that came beforehand, the conservation model also has its own assumptions. The assumptions include about nursing. Levine states that ultimately the decisions for nursing intervention must be based on the unique behavior of the individual patient. And finally, for about the individuals, Levine also stated that the individual is a sentient being and the ability to interact with the environment seems ineluctably tied to his sensory organs, and that change is one of the essence of life for which we continue to do until the end.
So it is now time to discuss Sister Callista's Roy's theory, or popularly known as the Roy's adaptation model. This model was developed with the goal of nursing being to promote adaptation. Roy explained that adaptation occurs when people respond positively to environmental changes, and it is the process and outcome of individuals and groups who use conscious awareness, self-reflection, and choice to create human and environmental integration. The key concepts of Roy's adaptation model are made up of four components: person, health, nursing, and environment. Let us now discuss these concepts one by one. According to Roy's model, a person is a biopsychosocial being in constant interaction with a changing environment. He or she uses innate and acquired mechanisms to adapt. The model includes people as individuals, as well as in groups such as families, organizations, and communities. This also includes society as a whole. The adaptation model states that health is an inevitable dimension of a person's life and is represented by a health-illness continuum. Health is also described as a state and process of being and becoming integrated and whole. The environment has three components: focal, which is internal or external and immediately confronts the person; contextual, which is all stimuli present in the situation that all contribute to the effect of the focal stimulus; and three, residual, whose effects in the current situation are unclear. All conditions, circumstances, and influences surrounding and affecting the development and behavior of people and groups of particular consideration and mutuality of person and earth resources, including focal, contextual, and residual stimuli. The goal of nursing is to promote adaptive responses in relation to four adaptive modes, using information about a person's adaptation level and various stimuli. Nursing activities involve manipulation of these stimuli to promote adaptive responses. The model includes two subsystems as well. The cognitor subsystem is a major coping process involving four cognitive emotive channels: the perpetual and information processing, learning, judgment, and emotion, whereas the regulator subsystem is a basic type of adaptive process that responds automatically through neural, chemical, and endocrine coping mechanisms. The factors that influenced the development of the model involved family, education, religious background, mentors, and clinical experiences. Theories have been published and revised to better the healthcare system. The promotion of health is more than just the absence of a disease. It is a dynamic process that includes biological, psychological, and social-cultural factors. These individuals have paved the way for the betterment of nursing care. It is now our job to hold onto that torch and blaze our trail. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation. I hope that you have learned a lot today, and magis.